Welcome to the Explainer. Now, when I say AI assistant, you're probably thinking about the one on your phone, right? But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about building one yourself for your own specific, unique challenges. We're going to look at how regular people, just like you, are doing exactly that with a platform called AssiWorks. So, I want you to think for a second. What's that one super tedious task you do at work? The one you just wish would, disappear? Well, what if you could actually build an AI to take care of it for you? And look, this isn't science fiction anymore. This is the reality of a whole new wave of automation, and it's all powered by something we call an AI agent.
Okay, so what is an AI agent, really? At its core, it's pretty simple. It does three things: perceive, decide, and act. So first, it perceives its environment. It sees an incoming email, or it gets a new piece of data. Then, it decides what to do next based on the goals you gave it. And finally, it acts on that decision. It might write a response, create a report, send an alert, whatever you need. The point is, this is an AI that doesn't just answer your questions, it actually does things for you.
And the problems these agents are solving, they're not always these huge world-changing things. I mean, look at this user proposal. It's about lunch. The daily pressure of deciding what to eat for lunch lowers morning work efficiency. That might sound kind of trivial, right? But it's that little bit of mental load, that tiny decision that an AI agent can just take right off your plate. Pun definitely intended. So, the big question is, how do you actually build one of these things, especially if you're not a professional coder? Well, that's where a platform like AssiWorks comes into the picture. It's basically a place where people can turn these automation ideas into a real working thing.
Yeah, AssiWorks gives you this no-code environment to build your own agents. And the real magic behind it, the real power, comes down to just two simple concepts that act as the basic building blocks. So the first building block is what they call a function. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a single Lego brick. It's one little piece of code that does one very specific thing, like maybe it summarizes a block of text or it grabs a file from a database. Each function is its own self-contained tool. Okay, so if the functions are the individual Lego bricks, then a flow is what you build with them. It's a process where you literally connect these functions together in a sequence. The output from one function just becomes the input for the next one. That's how you chain together a bunch of simple tools to create a really powerful, fully automated workflow.
All right, so what can you actually build with these functions and flows? This is the fun part. Let's take a look at what real users came up with in this competition they held, called the AOI-thon. And let me tell you, the results were, well, they were super creative, but also incredibly practical. I mean, just look at the range of ideas here. It's pretty impressive. One team built an SNS Insight Finder to automate marketing analysis. Another one took on meeting notes with something called Agenda AI. You've got solutions for monitoring industrial data, and even an agent that helps developers refactor their code. It just goes to show how flexible this whole concept really is. Let's zoom in on that SNS Insight Finder for a second. The value here is so obvious. Think about it. Instead of having someone manually sift through hundreds of social media comments, their agent just does it. It scans for keywords, sorts feedback into categories like complaints or new ideas, and then spits out a summary report. That is a huge time saver. Okay, here's one that I think we can all relate to. It tackles a universal pain point: meetings. A team built this smart meeting assistant called Agenda AI, and its whole job is to automate that entire post-meeting workflow. And here is how that flow actually works. It's brilliant. Step 1, you upload the meeting audio file. The agent then sends that file to OpenAI's Whisper model to get it transcribed. The next function in the chain takes that transcript, summarizes it, and pulls out all the action items. And then the final function formats everything into a nice, clean email and shoots it off to the whole team. A super complex workflow, all automated with just a single click. And this same basic approach works just as well in more, let's say, data-heavy environments. So another team, they focused on the Internet of Things, or IoT. They built an agent to watch over sensor data coming from industrial equipment and, you guess it, automatically flag any problems. So this is basically a classic data pipeline, but it's completely automated.
The flow starts by collecting real-time sensor data from an API. Then it cleans that raw data up so it's usable. The next step is analysis. It compares the new data to a baseline to see if anything looks weird, any anomalies, and if it finds an issue, boom, it automatically generates and formats a report. It's a perfect example of that perceive, decide, and act framework we talked about, but in a totally data-driven context.
So these projects were amazing, right? But what's almost as interesting is that they also highlighted areas where the platform could get even better. And this user feedback, it wasn't just a list of complaints. Not at all. It was more like a collaborative roadmap for the future of these AI agents. A really big one that came up was about APIs. Right now, the platform is great with public APIs that don't need a login. But to connect to real business tools, things like Slack or Google Drive or your company's internal software, users need to be able to handle authentication securely. Getting that right is absolutely critical to unlocking the next level of powerful, real-world automation. And that was just the start. The user wish list was pretty extensive. People were asking for all sorts of things. Better ways to visualize data, like charts and graphs, a more intuitive drag-and-drop editor, smarter ways to get information in, like being able to read text from images using OCR, and of course, you had the classic quality-of-life requests, things like autosave and a dark mode, plus pre-built templates for common tasks, and even the ability to run your own Python code for total control. And I think this user quote really captures the overall feeling perfectly. People loved the visual, block-based way of building things. It helped them understand how it all worked. But as their ideas got bigger and more ambitious, they naturally started to push up against the limits of the current UI. And you know what? That's the best possible sign of a truly engaged community. So what does all of this really mean for the future of building your own AI? Well, it points to a future where that line between user and developer, it's starting to get pretty blurry. And this, right here, is the key takeaway from the whole story. All that user feedback, it isn't criticism. It's not about pointing out flaws. It's actually the most valuable asset the platform could possibly have. It's a detailed, user-generated roadmap that says, here's exactly what you should build next, all driven by the real-world needs of the community. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful AI agents aren't going to be cooked up in some lab in isolation. They're going to be born from this exact kind of synergy, taking powerful technology and combining it with the practical, everyday, and sometimes really surprising problems that real people are trying to solve. So we've seen agents that can analyze social media, that can summarize your meetings, that can monitor industrial data. The building blocks are there. The community is literally writing the roadmap for what's next. So that just leaves one final question, and this one's for you. Now that you've seen what's possible, what's the first task you would automate?